You'll love that.
Download our app today and enjoy tackle-busting benefits with great odds, more markets and same-game multi every NRL match at Palmerbet. Gamble responsibly. For Gamblers' Help, call 1-800-858-858.
Hello and welcome to episode 422 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. And join me as always is the glorious League Freak. You can also find on Twitter at League Freak. How you going there, mate?
I'm going very well, Andrew. I'm really looking forward to this podcast because we've got a lot to talk about that is very controversial. It feels like in the last 24 hours, the NRL has just gone off like a firecracker. To the point where you actually wrote an amazing article that got posted on leaguefreak.com called Epic Fail, which I was very, very happy to host. You always write really good articles, and it's awesome to host them on my website.
Yeah, people need to go over and check that out. It's a look at sort of the lead up as to how we got to the point of what happened in the Cowboys-Tigers game. And as I often do, as is my style, I don't just sit there and bitch and moan. I offer solutions at the end. So I've chucked that in there as well. And yes, it was written about half an hour after the game was finished. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, given the amount of drama that went on, not a single swear word in there, which impressed me more than anything else.
Yeah, when you told me there was no swearing, I considered not posting it on my website. It didn't fit the theme of my website, but I thought I'll make an exception this time.
Yeah. I think it's one of those cases, sometimes you put swear words in for an emphasis of emphasize an emotion.
Yeah.
I thought by not using swear words was sort of going to emphasize it even stronger in this instance because people would probably expect the swearing.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
When I look back on it, it looks a little bit more aggressive without it there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've done that before where you feel as though what you're talking about is too important to go down that pathway because it's a very different style of writing. And yeah, it's interesting when you can get to that point with your writing that you can change it to fit a certain situation. And I know what you mean. Yeah, sometimes you write something and you're like, no, I don't want this to come across as so emotional that I couldn't help swear in the article. I want to really show people that I've thought through this and this is how I feel. It did that. It did that.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, it's got to have that impact and also be crystal clear about my stance and also how frustrated this whole situation is.
Yeah.
So I guess we should probably get into it. What do you reckon?
Okay, let's do it. Now, really unique situation here, okay, because you're a West Tigers fan. You watched the game. You saw this live. I didn't watch the game, but I have seen what happened from that last kickoff beyond that. So you've got the emotion of being a fan of the team that lost and having lived through the prior game. I don't. So we're getting two kind of different perspectives here when we talk about this. So this will be really interesting. So take us through what happened and what your thoughts were as it happened.
All right, well, I suppose to paint a bit of a picture here, the Tigers were up 16-6 at halftime. Their attack was starting to show a little bit of promise. Like there was one try I mentioned on Twitter where the Tigers actually had a decoy runner on the edge run through the line. And that caused the defence to stop moving, stop sliding, just for a second. But it was enough to allow Luke Brooks to throw a cutout pass to his winger, and his winger was in space and he scored. But it's those little details, that tiny little stuff that they've not been doing. And you can see how important just that one runner going through the line, holds the defence up, bang, try. It's that simple. And they hadn't been doing it. And it was something that Maguire spoke about, getting those little 1%ers right and doing things like that. And you'd see him trying to coach Brooks to do that, to hold the ball up and wait for those moments. And he finally did it, sadly, without Maguire there. But we started seeing little things starting to work, which was very promising. The Cowboys came out in the second half. They scored back-to-back tries. Actually, no, I think they scored three. They might have scored 3 straight tries, actually. And they took the lead. And then Valentine Holmes kicked a field goal to give them a 1-point lead. Was it 1-point lead? No, it was more than that. There was a 7-point lead. That's right. 7. Trying to do this. No, 5-point lead. The Tigers then scored a try. Trying to figure out how the fucking numbers here. Probably should have done some research. But no. So the Cowboys had a 3-point lead after Holmes kicked the field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Tigers scored a try with about 90 seconds left. Dewey took 89 seconds to have the shot at goal, which he missed. The Tigers were up 26-25, and there was 1 second left on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
That's legitimate what was going on. So we had the kickoff, and the Tigers in their own mind going, we just need to catch this thing and die with the ball in their hands. Game over, we win. Cowboys kick off short. They kick to the right. It goes to Dane Laurie. He catches it. He does that stupid thing where they just hit the ground and wait for someone to touch him and it's game over.
Yep.
That's basically what happened. Referee blows his whistle. And we think, that's it, game's over, Tigers won. About fucking time. And then Chad Townsend calls for a ref's challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the ref allows it. And they challenge and they rule that the Tiger Centre, Kepawawa, has run an escort and knocked Kyle Felt out illegally. Yes. And they've awarded a penalty to the Cowboys, and Holmes kicks a penalty goal and wins the game 27-26 for the Cowboys.
Okay, now it's interesting hearing you tell me the way that it played out. Because let me tell you the way that I saw it play out. Okay.
I'm going through, that's what the NRL has sort of played it out as. The way I saw it was,
okay.
Well, the way I feel, is that you can't challenge a referee's decision when a referee hasn't made a decision. He blew his whistle to stop play, according to Annesley.
Now, I don't think he did.
Well, Annesley said this is another drama, He said he blew a short whistle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no, it was Klein who said to the referee, Klein was in the bunker, and he said to Butler, the referee, you blew a short whistle, not a long whistle to signal full time. I went, what the fuck is this shit?
Okay, now let me tell you what that is. Okay, because...
Is this legit?
No, when I say it to you, when I explain it to you, you'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. So the short whistle is the play is dead, right? So we'll go, psst, all right, short whistle. Then the long whistle is, psst, 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 psst. That's the end of the game.
Right.
Now, that makes sense, right? So he says, so the short whistle is the ball is dead, okay? Mm-hmm. The long whistle would come after that. That's the end of the game, okay? He didn't blow the long whistle. I didn't actually see him blow the short whistle, but there was so much going on, and I was looking at so many things that the referee was dealing with within the space of 5 seconds, okay? So the short whistle and the long whistle is a thing, and we see it all the time. The thing is, we just sort of, it's something that we are so used to seeing. We don't even realize that it's a rule. So say a player knocks the ball on, it's short whistle, right?
Yeah.
Then if you could blow I could give you a whistle right now. You could show me what the sound is of that whistle.
Oh, yeah. I get all what you're saying.
You get that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So short whistle and long whistle is a thing.
Yeah. The whole concept, though, of a captain's challenge is you challenge a referee's decision.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, the referee hadn't made a decision, and yet a ref challenge was used. Now, Annesley said that's legit and fine. I think that's a bit of a grey area.
It is, yeah.
And then Annesley went and said that the penalty shouldn't have been awarded in the first place. So the Tigers should have won. Especially there's always these debates when it comes down to, you can have a game-changing decision in the middle of a game somewhere. But the thing is, you don't know how another team's going to respond when they're trailing points, when they're chasing points, or when they've got the lead, and whether how much that impacts the way they play from then on in. You wouldn't know. But in this instance, there was no more play afterwards. So this actually did change the result of the game after full time.
Mm-hmm.
So if question I've got more than anything else is we can actually overlook the whole ref challenge thing and full time and whatnot else. If he says that penalty should not have been awarded and it was awarded after time and that decided the game, why don't they just make that goal after the 80th minute null, which would revert the scoreline, and that would fix everything?
Because if you start doing that, like the way that I would look at that is, the NRL has said that there was a mistake in the game, right? And mistakes happen in every game.
Yes.
And if you start going back and changing results like that, it's a very slippery slope. And at the end of the day, it's a position where the football game did not go the Tigers' way. They had a decision that wasn't in their favour that the NRL has said was wrong. And it's not great, but it's just one of those things. And if we start would you like Graham Annesley to be in the decision-making process where he goes back every Monday and starts looking through and starts changing results? Like, I know
no,
that's
of course
not
not. But I'm not.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's what I was trying to get to before there is that there was going to be zero play after this.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no chance for any other change to the scoreline. It didn't matter what mood any team was in, what form they were in at that point of the match. Nothing else was happening at this point. But this penalty goal either gave the Tigers the win or the loss. Everyone was just standing around watching.
Mm-hmm.
And it's after the 80th minute. To me, if you're going to change results, and I'll say that I'll also make this clear, I don't think the result should be changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But theoretically.
I'm throwing it up as an argument.
Yeah.
If they admit fault,
Mm-hmm.
they admit that the referee got it wrong, that the penalty shouldn't have been awarded, and the goal should not have been, attempted and also got, and that the Tigers should have won. Surely in this situation when if you just take the goal off, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you give the Tigers the win that way, there's no grounds for the Cowboys to say, but we could have gone on and done this, because you couldn't have. It was all over.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
But here's the thing, and we go back to the short and long whistle. Until that long whistle is blown, the game is not over. So that he would have blown the long whistle after the goal went through the posts. Then the game is over, and that's one of the things about most sports, but definitely rugby league, where it's a cliche, but you play to the whistle, and I think that's where you would lose that argument.
Oh, no. I'm fine with the whole whistle thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's stupid. It's stupid and weird and all that sort of stuff. Short, long whistles, whatever. Okay. It's more the fact that there was not a referee's decision that was made that a captain could challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Can I talk you through what I saw happen?
Yeah, sure.
And I saw it almost in a bubble, which is kind of interesting. First of all, Valentine Holmes kicks it from an offside position. He was in front of the line when he kicked it. I saw a journalist post that earlier today, so it was an illegal kick-off to start with, which is great.
Oh, the reset.
Yeah.
A restart.
Yeah, from the restart. You're not allowed to be in front of the line, and he sort of curled back around the line. Does that make sense? So that he got purchased.
I would have thought though that you have to be behind the line when the foot hits the ball, because hitting your foot hitting the ball is what starts the play.
Starts the play, yeah. Look, it could
For me,
be.
it's kind of like if you're chasing a ball, you're going down the sideline, you run outside the
And you
field of play
reestablish
to
yourself.
get around the defence and then run back into the field of play, then regather the ball. That's allowed. I would have thought this is the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I was fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go past that. So what I saw happen was the kick goes up, deeper kick than I think they probably wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You see the West Tiger player come in he starts on the sideline, he comes infield. He does run into Felt. Felt runs into him. I think it was 50-50, to be honest with you. Laurie gets the ball, kills the ball dead, play over. I then see the referee saying, I can't hear you, right? And he's got most of both teams coming towards him yelling. He keeps saying, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. He tries to get away from everyone because he's getting some instruction from the bunker.
Yes.
I don't know what that instruction was from the bunker, but it obviously wasn't everything's fine, game over. Okay, so he's being told something from the bunker.
Yeah.
While that's happening, he has, let's say, 20 of the 26 players coming after him.
Yeah.
He also has all of the Cowboys fans going off their heads. He also then has to consider that there could be a challenge to whatever is going on right now. And I've seen a thing where there's been some journalists saying the challenge come 21 seconds after the play and you're only allowed to do it 10 seconds after. Well, the referee spent 20 seconds trying to hear what the bunker was saying to him. Not 1 second was wasted in that. As soon as he heard what the bunker had said to him, it took maybe 2 or 3 seconds for the West Tiger player to say, yeah, I want to do a captain's challenge. Now, I understand.
Cowboys player.
Oh, Cowboys player, yeah. Sorry. Now, I understand that what is there to really challenge? I get that. Probably the wrong call by the referee. But my point is that the referee, in the space of 5 seconds, has to check with his touchies, has 20 footy players running at him, has about 15,000 Cowboys fans yelling at him. He all of a sudden is getting some instruction from the bunker that he can't quite hear, and he's trying to get away from everyone to get to so he can hear. And when he gets that information, whatever that information was, he immediately has the Cowboys captain saying, we want to challenge that. So he goes to the challenge, right? Then Ashley Klein, who's in the bunker, looks at the footage. Now, I think that I can see a decision where you can say Kyle Felt tried to milk the penalty. I can also see a decision where you could come to where you could say the West Tigers player ran across field and then straightened up. I can see a place where you can say the West Tigers player is trying to protect his man jumping for the ball, and he doesn't need to give a clear runway to the Cowboys player. I can also see where you can say the Cowboys player shouldn't have to deal with the West Tigers player running from the sideline into his line. So I feel like the ultimate decision that Ashley Klein made was a 50-50 call. And when it comes down to a 50-50 call, I can't sit here and say, oh, that's a bloody disgrace, because I think it was a 50-50 call. I really do. I think either way, it's going to be a 50-50 call. Now, let me say something else on top of that. The referees have to meet KPIs. You hear Annesley talking about this a lot, about the refereeing KPIs. One of those has got to be like your calls in the game as a bunker referee. Now, in that situation, if Ashley Klein had have said, because the football call there is, look, Kyle Felt probably wasn't going to get to the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he took a bit of a dive. Like Kyle Felt's he's got to be like 98 kilos or something. And he got shot like he was one of those extras in a spaghetti western, you know?
I think the thing that was weird about his dive was that it didn't go in the natural way that you would dive if you had a collision at that level. He just sort of shot a little bit backwards and sideways, whereas the other bloke sort of went diagonally forwards, as you would expect.
Yeah, he sold it.
Yeah.
At the very least, he sold it.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at that, if Ashley Klein has said, look, he probably wasn't going to get there, they had their chance to win this game and they didn't do it. End of game, right? He's going to have Cowboys fans and Cowboys supporters and the coach and everyone saying this was clearly an incident where there was an escort player. And as I said, because it's a 50-50 call, I think it would have been just as controversial. I think any decision Ashley Klein made in that situation was going to be as controversial pretty much either way, right? I think it's probably more controversial the way it played out, just because a penalty to then change the score after that is kind of shocking to see. But I think that if the Cowboys would have gone off if they had the decision go against them. So when you look at it from Ashley Klein's point of view, and it's these guys' careers, and people forget that sometimes, does Ashley Klein want to explain himself and say, you know what, by the letter of the law, I probably could have given a penalty, right? On black and white, I could have given a penalty. But, football situation, you probably wouldn't have got to the ball. You know what I'm talking about, Graham. You're not going to throw me under the bus, are you? Do you see where I'm getting at? So
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, so Ashley Klein is, or any video referee in that situation. It's not necessarily just Ashley Klein. And I don't think he's a good referee, by the way. So I'm not defending him because I'm a big fan of his. Ashley Klein is incentivized to give that penalty.
Well, we've seen that a lot this year, is the escort thing, more often than not, will lead to a penalty, even if it's not legit.
Yeah. Even there's ones where you're like, oh man, that's really harsh. But when it goes to the video ref gives it the vast majority of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is the sensory overload the on-field referee was in at that time, and the fact that it is clear from that situation that the on-field referee is not the man who is ultimately in control of the officiating of the game, which you and me have talked about since they got rid of the second video referee. And they brought in the video, since they got rid of the second on-field referee and allowed the video referee to talk to the on-field referee. He was in a no-win situation either. And the sensory overload is ridiculous that he had to deal with. I don't blame him for if he gave a captain's challenge when it probably wasn't appropriate at that moment, because he was just dealing with everything at once. And I think that situation we saw is the best indicator that rugby league, especially the NRL, needs two referees on the field, and that decisions should be made on the field and left on the field, and that this captain's challenge system, rather than smoothing over some of the problems we supposedly had with officiating, has done nothing but cause more angst, more outcry, more controversy, and therefore is not doing the intended job that it was supposed to do, and it should be scrapped.
I fully agree. Just go back to the actual collision between Felt and Kepaoa.
Yep.
It's a bit different to a normal in-play kick, where usually your two opposing players are facing one another, so you get a rough idea where each other's line is.
Mm-hmm.
Kepaoa was defending on the wing, and as you said, the kick probably went too high and a bit too deep, but it didn't go as far wide as Kepaoa was. So he ran on the line initially very sharp in field, but Felt wasn't near him at that time. And then he ran straight back in a line directly towards Laurie.
Yes.
Caught the ball.
Yes.
And Felt ran wide of him. So he ran on the inside of him and hit him on the wrong side of the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like Felt ran a slightly different line, because he ran wide and then ran towards him a little bit. Now,
Look, from a football point of view, you and me, we look at that and we both say, play on.
that's pretty much what I'm getting at. I look at it and go, I don't really care if Felt's taken a dive or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care if Kepoa is a little bit in his line. At the end of the day, neither of them were close to getting to where that ball was going to land up. And we all know that given the amount of time left on the clock, what was going to happen was Laurie was going to catch it and not do anything other than hold on to that ball, with all of his fucking life and just hit the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's all was going to happen. So Felt was not going to get there. Kepoa wasn't going to get there. If you also look on the footage too, there's another player standing in Felt's line, probably another 3 or 4 meters in front of him after the collision with Kepoa happened. He would have had to run around that person as well if Kepoa hadn't gotten his way.
Yeah, and as I said, it is not imperative for the Cowboys players to make sure that their runway is clear for all of the Cowboys players to come through. The West Tigers players, they're allowed to exist between the Cowboys players and the player receiving the ball. As I said, I think you can make a really good. I think the football argument for Felt runs into the player, game over. That's the football argument. By the current standards set by the NRL and the current rule book, I think you can make a really good argument the other way. I really do believe it is a 50-50 call. But as I said, the incentivization for the video referee is not to go for the common sense almost football decision. It is to go by the letter of the law, which is fine, but we need to understand that the letter of the law in this case means that the West Tigers get penalised. I don't think the West Tigers player ran across field and thought, I'm going to get in Felt's way. I really don't think that.
When you look at the footage, he doesn't. I couldn't see any moment where he intentionally took his eye off the ball to look where Felt was.
Yeah.
And as I said, because it's a restart, every single player in the West Tigers are going to be either side on, so they can see what's to their left and what's to their right, or they're going to have their backs to the halfway line, looking at, watching for the ball to come into their peripheral vision, and then they're going to head in that direction. But that's what most of them do. Like the wingers will start sideways, and as I said, the kickoff, they follow the ball. And that's what Kepoa has done. That's why he's turning circles, pretty sharp to start with and then straightens up.
Yeah.
It's not like he's trying to get in anyone's line. He's following the ball.
Yeah.
And for the same reason everybody else in the Tigers team was, you look at them all in there's only 1 or 2 that is actually looking at Felt. The rest are all looking at the ball because their goal is to go down there and fucking surround Laurie as quickly as possible.
And they do a really good job of that.
Yeah.
When you see it, really the only thing that stopped, the only way that Felt could have got to him was when that West Tigers player was there. If that West Tigers player was there, that he maybe could have. I don't think he would have got there in terms of getting there when the ball gets there anyway. But the West Tigers had surrounded Dane Laurie in a circle already, which they're entitled to do. They don't have to get out of the way of everyone. They just can't purposefully take somebody out as they're running through.
That's right.
Look, and the thing is with this whole situation, I think it's because it is such a game-defining decision, and people from all sorts are upset about it. I think that the 10,000-foot view of it is going missing, in that there is obviously a problem with the how much input an on-field referees is getting. And this was just the clearest cut moment I have ever seen, that we need the 2 referees back on the field, because 2 referees, I think, handled that on the field. This captain's challenge thing is absolutely ridiculous. It's slowing the game down. It's been used in just silly instances where, you can challenge one call, not get that challenge right, but something else happened in the play that the referee saw, so you keep your challenge, and it's just a mess. It's layers of messes that have been put on top of one another, and it just all needs to be cleaned out. We go back to 2 video refs, no captain's challenge. And look, if it was up to me, I would take the video referee right the way back to in-ground goal. If it doesn't happen in goal, the video ref can't look at it, and the video ref does not talk to the referee during the game.
Yeah, I'd say, look, the bunker is a great concept. What it needs to be is something that is a piece of technology that is relied upon when the on-field refs ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be the other way around. The only reason why it's the other way around is because the current administration got rid of, as you said, they got rid of 2 refs, and they thought the best way to compensate for that is to allow the bunker to intervene during the live game on matters other than try scoring. That was the problem. And then they brought in the captain's challenge thing, which just belittled and undermined the on-field referees. And more often than not, as you were getting to, the clubs weren't even using it legitimately. They got to the point where they just went, we need a breather. Let's just challenge something with 10 minutes to go and all have a rest.
Mm-hmm.
So even they weren't using it properly. Even they didn't care about it that much. It's a stupid idea. Yeah, we need 2 on-field refs back. They could have discussed it with each other on the field. They could have then asked the bunker if they needed to. The whole thing's a mess. And it's a bunch of rule changes that were brought in that didn't need to be brought in. They were only brought in because a bunch of fucking idiots in the mainstream media bitched and moaned about referees because that's all they ever did. And the reason why they did that is because it got clicks. That's it. They didn't know how to fix it. We've got this stupid system now. We need to get rid of it. None of it works. None of it is an improvement. None of it needs to be kept. It is all atrocious. I've been opposed to it, as have you, since the fucking day they brought it in. And I never envisaged that those 3 issues with the officiating would all culminate and conspire with one another to all fuck up at the same time and cost the team a victory. But it has, somehow.
Yeah, and it's look, it was shocking to me to see the on-field referee having to go, wait a minute, I'm being instructed by somebody about a decision I should make. That's never been rugby league. The referee has always been it's not like other sports where you've got a bunch of different officials and, you know, they can all make different calls and stuff like that. In rugby league, the referee had the final say. He was the one that had the whistle that blew full time. You know, it didn't come up to somebody else. So to see him trying to get away from everyone so he could get instructed on what to do next was shocking. And the other thing is too, like, we watch rugby league for entertainment and to be happy watching it. And all this captain's challenge and getting rid of the second referee and allowing the bunker to talk to the referee and give him instruction and stuff, all that has done, even with the way they review tries now, all it does is add anger and upset to the people that are watching the game and playing the game. Yeah. That's not what sport is supposed to be about. If you've got these layers of administrative shit that you've added to your rule book that just makes everyone unhappy, maybe you should get rid of them things, because rugby league survived a very long time without a video referee. And look, I can tell you, I called New South Wales Cup games just a couple of years ago before COVID where there was no video referee. And you know what? Them games were fine. And you would sometimes watch and go, oh, what was that about? I don't understand what happened there. And I think he come up with this decision. And life went on. The world kept on spinning. I actually saw a biting complaint without the video referee in a game I called. And the people I was calling the game with, they were like, what's going on? Because somebody come on the field with a camera. I said, it's because we don't have video footage. So, you know, they're getting, you know, images of the alleged bite. And, you know, this is what happens when you don't have a video referee and cameras around. And everything was fine. The game works fine without a video referee. Sure, you're going to miss some calls and there might be a knock on or something, you know, that gets missed. But the world keeps spinning. Games keep getting played. The vast majority of the time we end up with the best team or one of the best teams winning the grand final, and life goes on. And I just think for all the angst that's been caused with all of these additions, I don't think they add to rugby league whatsoever. Now, TV people love them because, number one, you're adding more ads to it. Number two, you're adding more breaks to it. Number three, you're extending the coverage. And number four, they love replays. They're camera people. They're video people. They're producers. They love to be able to show off the replays, the great camera work. Look at this slow motion footage. So, of course, they love it. But people watching at home hate it.
Yeah. Basically, the NRL referees have been turned into patsies more than anything else.
Yeah, and I feel so sorry for them. And we've said this since they got rid of the second referee. Like, these poor guys are chasing their own tail. Every Monday, their boss, like, publicly throws them under the bus. And then we all wonder why they're worried about making decisions and that they're jumping at shadows, because this is the environment that their workplace is.
Yeah. It was a whole messy process.
Yeah, it really was. And as you said, everything culminated in that 1 second of gameplay. And I think it really revealed the soul of all those issues that you brought up in your article. And I think that it showed that there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be removed that Graham Annesley and his team has added to the game. And I think Graham Annesley should stand down. I don't think we've ever seen referees under more pressure than we have under Graham Annesley. As a former referee, he should be ashamed of himself. The job he's done has been very poor, and I think it's time for him to go.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Long overdue. He's promised Tim Sheens, the West Tigers head of football, that he will be doing a full review of the entire incident. I mean, why? Why bother?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as we all know, the result is not going to get changed. Why bother reviewing it?
Yeah.
Furthermore, I did find this amusing. Chairman Lee and his pet potato have said they were going to take legal action or some sort of crap. Well, look at their legal options. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere, you clowns.
I think I've said on the podcast before my thoughts on supposed legal action in sport is that it doesn't exist until you're in a courtroom, because so many people say, I'm going to go to court over this, and like 99% of them don't. And I don't expect the West Tigers will either.
Of course not. Do you know? Chairman Lee's isn't he a lawyer or something like that? Dryden's a lawyer's principal or whatever?
I'm not sure. I had somebody actually message me in a DM. I had somebody message me in a DM. It was Sean, and he said the West Tigers are probably really happy with what the board and the CEO are probably pretty happy with what happened, because it takes focus off them. And I think that had a lot to do with the strong way they come out after this game. And look, I think any board and CEO would have come out in a strong way, but I think that I wouldn't be shocked if the West Tigers carried this on a little bit longer than most clubs would have, because it does take pressure off of those lot.
I think this thing will be gone by the end of next weekend.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I hope so.
What are they going to do? I mean, if the Tigers were sitting in ninth position, and they were 2 points shy of the 8, and it was the final round, and they needed this to get into the finals, maybe they do something about it. But they're sitting last. You know, this is not going to change their season.
I actually saw one of the West Tigers board members, and I can't remember which guy it was, but he said he was talking about this game and the 2 points and how it has implications for the wooden spoon race. And he said, we're a proud club. We haven't won a wooden spoon in 22 years. And all I could think of was like, dude, half of those years you haven't been in the finals. Like, let's not talk about like the proud traditions of not winning the wooden spoon. It's like you've been crap the whole time.
They've been very, very lucky to avoid it.
Yeah, yeah.
And long overdue for it.
Yeah.
Long overdue for it. It's probably the best thing that could happen to the club because they'll go, you know what, maybe we need to change some things. Anyway, that gets me on another tangent that I've already covered time and time again. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy, hectic moment there. The other thing that was interesting, I remember hearing Chad Townsend in the presser afterwards saying that he saw the player was taken out or saw the escort thing, whatever it was, and he was immediately calling for the referees, the captain's challenge. And when I look back at the replay, he doesn't look like he notices it or pays any attention to it until after Laurie catches the ball. And just before Laurie catches the ball, one of the Tigers players just standing around there happens to be in Townsend's way. He doesn't get in his line, but Townsend's trying to run around him and he can't get around him in time to get to the ball. And he's probably the closest to getting to Laurie. And it looked like Townsend might have initially been complaining that he was the one obstructed.
Oh, okay.
And he looks around and he sees Felt on the ground and then he starts ramping up the complaint. And I was like, I wonder what he was actually complaining about. bit dubious, but anyway. But that's pretty much that. The only other game I saw which was interesting to me was the Panthers-Sharks game.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Well, I'm thinking back to my prediction for the game as well, and it kind of followed it, where the Panthers were, especially in that first half, they were confused by that Sharks attack. They didn't know what to make of it, and the defence sort of was a little apprehensive to start with on how to defend against them. But when they come out in the second half, they went, okay, what we're going to do is get on the front foot and rush them in defence and get them back to playing our style of football, because I think that's what happened is the Sharks were playing their type of football in the first half, and Penrith's defence were caught off guard, and they kind of allowed that to happen to some degree. To their credit, and the good teams do this, they were able to get themselves back into the game. But yeah, I remember saying in the preview that the Sharks have that awkward attack that just teams don't quite know how to figure it out, because it just comes at you from so many different angles. There's nothing that's a set play that they do religiously all the time to try and score points. They just throw weird things at you from different angles and stuff, and lots of good decoy runners, and very interesting game to watch. Penrith's fitness and their defence in that second half, that was what decided the game more than anything else.
Yeah, I was actually in the second half of that game, I was thinking about how a lot of great teams, there's always a certain style of play that they maybe have problems defending against. And like we've seen it with the Storm at times, and they had problems defending against, weirdly enough, the New Zealand Warriors and how they played the game for a while. And then going back to, say, the late 90s, I remember Brian Smith, when he was coaching Parramatta, there was a very famous game where when they would play the Broncos, they would slow everything down. They would kick to touch every single time they could. They just did everything slower with the idea that the Broncos wanted to play up tempo to sort of suit their style of play. And to a certain extent, it worked for the Parramatta Eels over the Broncos, and the Broncos would have problems with the Eels. And I was thinking about those sorts of teams in terms of like that first half. You were right. The Sharks, their style was kind of making some inroads against the Panthers, and the Panthers' defense was having to adjust and stuff like that. Then the Panthers come out in the second half, and it was like the door was shut, and they were completely comfortable against the Sharks in that second half. And it made me think about the adaptability of their defense. When I talk about the Panthers and how great there is, their attack can be so-so at times, you know. I think a lot of the points they score comes from the fact that an opposition team is so worn out by running into a brick wall. And you've got to be at a Panthers game to realise that at the 75th minute, the Panthers' defense is blasting you, you know, and they're normally blasting you while you're trying to get out of your own end, and they blast you for 80 minutes, and you just get to a point in the game where you're physically busted. I don't know how the Panthers can do that for 80 minutes, but they are so far and away the best defensive team I've ever seen in the NRL in my entire lifetime.
Yeah. Their fitness defensively does not drop off for the full 80 minutes. And that's the thing. Cleary's trained and coached them to be a defence-first team. And I'm amazed at how long it took a lot of people, especially in the media, not all of them, a lot of them still haven't figured it out yet, that's what the Panthers are. They're a defence-based team, not an attacking team.
No.
It's because Cleary understands that it's easier to score enough points to win if you keep your opposition to fuck all points. So that's what he works with. And you come against a team that's their attack's not quite on song, and your defence is able to shut them down easily and keep them quiet the whole game, then your players who are doing all that good defensive work still have plenty of energy in attack, and that's when they rack up the big scores. But more often than not, they score 20 points, and I mean, they know if they score 20 points, which is basically 3 tries more than anything else, because Cleary's that good a goal kicker. 18, 20 points is going to win them a game, nearly every time. That's a good situation to be in. You get someone like the Tigers who can score 26 points and still lose. And I'm not just talking about the game that was played against the Cowboys. It's happened a lot in their last 10, 11 years. They'll score 26, 28 points and lose games. The Titans are another one that does the same thing. Historically, if you get to 19 points in a game, you're a 50% chance of winning that game. That's where you need to get. That's your magic number, is 19. And so for a team to be able to get past that and still lose shows you how poor they are. And for a team to get under that mark and still win shows you how great they are. The Sharks in 2016 were the only other team I've come across. They weren't as good as this current Panther side, but they were a defence-based team that could win by scoring low scores.
Yeah.
So they went, other than when they smashed the Knights 64-0 or 62-0, whatever it was, nearly all of their games were 18-10, that sort of thing. They'd score 20s and stuff like that in the odd 30, but a lot of their scorelines, even for the years before and after, were in the teens, and they were still getting those wins. The Panthers are doing that, but their defense is so much better than what all those teams had in the past. They're just freakish. Unbelievable freakish.
It's weird. I find it really weird to see, especially when they will drop players that are legit first graders and bring in guys, and then when they go to their bench rotation, there is zero drop off.
Yeah.
And you can get a guy like Fisher Harris, who's I think he's the best prop in the game, right? Take him off the field, and you put on a guy who is really, really, really good and would start in most teams. So their depth is crazy. Their defense is the best I've ever seen. Cleary is if you could make Nathan Cleary in a lab to be the halfback of this team, you would still come out with Nathan Cleary, even down to, let's make him the coach's son as well, so he doesn't want to leave. And let's make him take a little bit of a discount to stay until he's 28 at least. It's absolutely insane to just watch it from afar. And for it to be the team that I support, I just can't believe it. And I'm watching them against the Sharks, and even when the Sharks were making some inroads and doing some things that they had the Panthers under the pump, and I tweeted about this, I'm at the point now where I'm I like seeing the Panthers challenged in these sorts of games, because I'm thinking 3 or 4 years down the track, when these players will be in their prime, all of this experience will be good for them. And yet we're getting the results of what you would expect down the track now. And Like you were saying to me, what was it that over the last 2 or 3 years they've lost 7 games all up?
Yeah, something like six losses in their last 68 games or something, I think it is.
Yeah, that is where you're starting to have to look through the history books and look if
that's around the mark of those Dragons teams in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. That's literally where it's at.
Yeah, and look, none of that matters if you don't win the premierships as well, and they're never going to win 10 premierships in a row. Nine, maybe 8, definitely. But just the fact that they're doing this in the modern era, it's like this is what happens when everything is in place and everything is humming along for the club, where it's the juniors, it's the first grade team's going well, the coaches are comfortable, the players like each other. Like if it's like we're seeing the perfect scenario play out here. It's crazy. It's so crazy.
It is. You don't get too many of these teams. I think the last one we saw that was close to this was that Manly side in 94, 95.
Yeah, that was the best defensive team I had seen until this Panthers side, definitely.
Yeah.
And that team was amazing. They should have won more titles.
Absolutely, but it just shows how hard it is to do.
Yeah. And look, they were also beaten in some, like the teams that would beat them did magic,
Yeah.
They were beaten by magic moments, and still managed to get a premiership themselves. So,
yeah, I mean they played in their fair share of grand finals, but to only get one title in that period, crazy. Shows how hard it is.
They should have at least got 2.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and you're like, well, which ones should they have won? It's interesting. It's like when you look at the 94 Raiders, they should have won more than the one title.
Yeah. That team was amazing.
Yeah. I felt like that was the best team I'd ever seen until some of the Storm sides that ended up being over the cap. I find it hard to put this Panthers team in those same categories because I think that this Panthers team it's more of the overall unit rather than superstar individuals, but their results are destroying those teams. It's really weird.
Yeah, they're definitely one of a kind. There's no doubt about that. What else has been going on? Something happened at Manly.
Yeah, well, okay. So the Manly Seagulls, they are going to wear what I think is called a gay pride jersey this weekend. It is basically the normal Manly jersey, but there are a couple of strips that are the rainbow, like gay pride flag on them. They did a big announcement about it. And they had a couple of players do a video thing. I think it was 3 different players did a video showing off the jersey that they were going to wear on the weekend. And basically it's come out that there were some players within the Manly club that weren't comfortable wearing that jersey. There were 7 of the players, and those 7 players have withdrawn from the upcoming game in which they will wear that jersey. It's a situation where the club has tried to make a move that is good for inclusivity within sport and therefore the wider community. And is it weird for me to say that this has all worked out just fine, in that Manly will still wear the jersey, the message will still be put out there, the players that don't want to participate for their personal reasons, whatever they are quietly choosing to stand away while that happens, but everything will continue to happen.
I guess I don't understand why the players just worry so much about it. It's not like no one's telling them that they have to be gay. You know, I don't understand why they're so bent out of shape over it. It's I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just think it's a lot of carry on that's just unnecessary. Just play the game of footy. You don't. No one's out there saying that you have to go out there and start saying anything about gay people or pride or anything like that. You don't have to say a single word. You just wear the jumper, play the game of footy, and move on with your life. And because if you don't play, especially in a round like this, of course the gender's going to come out and say, "Oh, how come these players are all fit but aren't playing this week?" And they're going to start digging, and they're going to find something. They're going to turn it into some negative campaign.
They're
going to make it something that it's... Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And
the thing
they're
is...
going to make it a negative thing about these players. I mean,
yeah.
Everyone's allowed to have a difference of opinion. From what I can tell, I could be wrong, but from what I can tell, these people haven't come out and said anything at all about this other than, it's not part of their religious beliefs, which is understandable. And that's largely the reason why they don't want to do it. They're not being anything nasty or aggressive. It's not like the Israel Folau situation. It's... But they're going to be made out to be bad people for it, instead of having their opinions and their views respected, even if people don't agree with it.
Yeah.
They've not done anything horrible. They haven't done anything bad to any groups of people. It just seems unfortunate that a really good concept by Manly, and I'm not surprised it was Manly first. They had, Ian Roberts as a player for a long time there. Absolute wrecking ball of a player. One of my favourite players as a kid. He was the first, I believe, the first Australian rugby league player who was, had revealed that he was gay. So I'm not surprised that Manly came out and did this, because it fits in with, their past in that regard. And the jumper it's subtle. They've just removed the white strip and they've just replaced it with the rainbow one. It still looks pretty good. It's still almost entirely maroon. I think it's a really good looking jumper. I think it does it all in exactly the right way. It's not over the top. It's not anything crazy. They're not making any, big ways of being controversial in any way. I think the whole thing that Manly's been doing about it all has been very professional, very good. It all perfectly fine. But the media are going to focus on these 7 players and they're going to make them out to be bad people for it. That's the bit I don't like. Especially if they've said something negative about homosexual people or anything like that, or if they've been nasty in any sort of way, then that's different. But from what I've seen so far, I've not heard that any of them have said a single word about it, other than it's not part of their beliefs, and fine. They've kept it at that. They've not attacked anyone or done anything nasty, so I don't know.
I agree, Andrew, and I would say that, quietly stepping away from this event, the event will still go ahead. The message will still be put out there. These players themselves as individuals have just chosen not to be part of that. And, you have to respect that decision on their behalf as well. We can't aim for inclusivity, and then when somebody is different from us and has a different thought process than us, we attack them and we try to destroy them.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. It is a real shame that there's this moment of positivity that the Manly Club have tried to create, and it's gone in this direction. I just hope that on game day, the event is unchallenged, by what these 7 players have chosen to do. Now, I've also seen people saying that these players are hypocrites because they wear gambling sponsors and things like that on their jersey. And I just think that they're completely different situations and subjects. I don't really follow that line of thinking. I don't know. Part of me feels as though this shows what the inclusivity message is in the terms of like, yeah, we're doing this though, and we're not going to not do this. And if you don't want to be part of it, don't be part of it. But hey, we're wearing this jersey on the weekend and we're going to, show this message to people within the community. And if you're not there, we'll still be out there doing this. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it or not.
I think so long as no one's doing anything that offends anyone or disrespects anyone or what they do, I'm fine with it. If it's a respectful thing that if they're doing it in a respectful manner and not being, as I said, like nasty about it, then I can't see why there should be a problem. We can't all think and have the same beliefs. That would be stupid, impossible, and boring. Very boring, yeah.
It made me think about because I watched a Super League game not that long ago, and they're still like kneeling for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, it seems to be a very British thing because I noticed that they were still doing it in the Formula One. And the weird thing is, not all of the drivers do the kneel thing. And it's not because they're against what the kneeling represents. It's because some of them, I remember hearing one, I can't remember which one it was, said something along the lines of, I think that it's wrong that I, as a white person, kneel when it's something that I think is predominantly a symbol for, the black people and what they do to make a symbol for them. I think it'd be a bit weird if a white person went down and did that. So they're actually trying to show their support, but not trying to take away from the message or the imagery of it all.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a complicated ground, I guess. But no one's made a single hoo-ha about the drivers who don't kneel. It's just accepted and they all just move on, which, that just seems fine. They've not said anything nasty about anyone. There's not a racist thing that comes out of any of their mouths. They're all very, very inclusive. So it just seems accepted that, people are allowed to have difference of opinion. We all move on, as it should be.
Yeah, and it's I find it interesting because when I saw it happen, I was like, what have I missed? Something happened. I like they're kneeling like it's the Black Lives Matter thing, but that was a long time ago and it was a different country. And as you say, it seems to be a British thing. I don't really understand why Britain picked up on it so heavily, but they did. And I think that I don't know. I think sometimes there's definitely sometimes in sport where you see a message going out and you wonder if it is the appropriate place for it. And then other times you feel like it's the right place and the right time for it. And it brings up the question of when is it right and when isn't it right, and when have we had our say, and not that it's time to move on, but we've had our say on this issue. And it brings up a lot of questions that I don't have answers for. Like, I don't know what the answer is for that sort of stuff, but I think that it's important that we do feel as though there is the room to talk about that stuff. And because we don't want to get to a place where, if somebody feels strongly against a message that's been put out there, or they don't feel like it aligns with their personal beliefs and things like that, that we don't demonize them immediately, because that's kind of going against the inclusive message as well. It's a weird one. It's a really weird one.
Yeah, it is a bit crazy how it's all sort of come about. So I hope that the media don't go nuts and turn this into a whole story about the players who aren't going to play, because that would be disrespectful by the media and nobody else.
Look, I hope when the game is played that it's like, I believe Ian Roberts is going to be there. And I think hopefully it's a cool moment for him and the club, and, anybody that attends the events or the ceremonies that are surrounding that. I hope it can keep that positive thing about it, and that it doesn't just, as you say, just be turned into a negative and a witch hunt, and all that sort of stuff, because it's not what Manly were aiming for.
No, that's right. It's exactly right. Now, another piece of news that came out today, it's been sort of hidden by the Tigers drama and this thing at Manly, is that Kevin Proctor's been released by the Titans.
Yeah, I believe it was for being seen to be vaping in the change rooms after the game. Now, did you know that?
No, I didn't.
It
said that he breached some club and stadium regulations or something like that. If it's vaping, I laugh because he hasn't been playing for quite a while in the NRL side, despite the team going absolutely dog shit, and him being fully fit, because he's been constantly named on the extended bench and not playing. It seems like they've gone, oh, we finally got something to get rid of him with.
It does, doesn't it? Now, you and me don't smoke.
No.
Never smoked. I have tried a vape. I know somebody that bought one, and I said, when they were opening it, I said, can I use it first and see what it's like? And it was really weird. First of all, the vape I tried had nothing in it. It was just the water vapor, because that's like literally what you breathe out is water vapor. That's why it's called a vape. And it was really weird. So I sucked the thing in, and I went to say, I don't think it's working. And when I did, all of this vapor comes out of my mouth. It was like a big cloud of smoke. And it was kind of cool. I was like, oh, look at this, and tried it. And but the one that I tried, it didn't have anything to burn in it. Now, it's illegal to use. It's illegal, I believe, now to buy a vape in a smoking tobacconist that has nicotine in it. But you can buy vapes that have nicotine in it at the pharmacy. So it's possible that he was smoking a vape that had nicotine in it, right? Mm-hmm. I believe you can put like other stuff into it that it just has a taste to the vape that is there's no chemical reaction, I guess. There's nothing to it. And there's other stuff you can get in vapes. I don't know much about that sort of thing. I'm not a smoker and I don't take drugs, right? But Kevin Proctor was blowing out like water vapor. And it's weird that he would get sacked for blowing out water vapor.
Even if it was doing, smoking stuff like that, or vaping, it just seems excessive to be sacked because of that.
Yeah.
I'd probably imagine that if it had been any other player on that side who's a regular first grade player, he would have copped a fine, which seems legitimately okay and acceptable. That's what you deserve. It just seems like the club saw this as a reason or as a way out of his contract, and that's what they've done.
Yeah, because I can see where Kevin Proctor, if he is big on vaping and he understands the rules and laws and stuff around vaping, And so, you know, some of the rules and laws are kind of different to smoking, you know. If he's like vaping, you know, wherever he's vaping at home, he's vaping inside because it doesn't have the smoky smell and stuff. And he's at the stadium and he's like, oh yeah, I'll vape, you know, here as well. And then he gets sacked. Like, and I would guess that he would lose, you know, even at this point of the season, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. No, it seems a bit weird.
It's pretty full on.
There's been a few NRL player movements over to England.
Mm-hmm.
The Sydney Roosters have freed up probably $3 or $4 million in their salary cap because Kevin Naguama's going to Huddersfield and Lachlan Lamb's going to Leigh.
Oh, Lachlan Lamb's leaving. You know, Kevin Naguama going has upset a lot of St. Helens fans, weirdly.
Really?
Yeah, because he was a St. Helens player, and he said he was come back to Australia because of family reasons, and then he's here for the year basically, and then he's going back over to England. So they were all like, "Well, and it's like, oh, jeez, you're getting upset about Kevin Naguama? Like, come on now." Lachlan Lamb will be a loss to the Roosters because he was good for depth at that club.
Yeah, it says he's going to be like looks like he's released immediately because he's going to be playing at Leigh for the rest of this year and for next year.
Yeah.
And his old man's coaching Leigh at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
And then Matt Duffy got an immediate release as well. And I kept on seeing headlines about Matt Duffy where it was like, you either love me or hate me. And it's like, that's not the way you want to leave with that sentiment being out there that you either love him or hate him. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's going to Warrington, and Josh Maguire will be leaving the Dragons. He too is going to Warrington.
Mm-hmm.
So the Wolves pick up a few. Well, I mean, they'll be superstars over there.
They will.
Would you say that they're going to win the title next year?
Well, I think this is their year personally.
It looks like they're on.
I actually saw one of the English journalists with Maguire, and they framed it as Australian international and state of origin star joins Warrington. And I retweeted it and said, like, that's one way to put it. Another way is like a completely finished career. He's had it's done, you know. It's kind of, he's not the sort of player I would get as a international signing, put it that way.
No, that's very true. Yeah. Now, maybe this could be something we can do for an episode in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through the Tigers squad.
Yes.
And looking at who they've got signed on for next year,
mm-hmm.
what gaps they've got. So I'm not thinking about doing a hypothetical of who they should get rid of. I'm not even looking at that yet. Just looking at who they've got signed for next year,
mm-hmm.
how many spots are available on that side, and then going through and finding out what's available that they could use, you know, that they could go and sign to try and improve the squad.
Yeah.
And let's just say I'm not looking forward to 2023 that much.
Yeah.
That's something we can look into later on because I'd like to do that for all the clubs.
Yeah.
And see if some clubs can be further enhanced or whether some clubs might drop back. Who knows? That might be a bit of an insight for, Palmerbet for next year.
Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be really cool. I wonder, I think that the markets for the following season go up pretty quickly after the grand final.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And because obviously the final series this year plays a big part of it, and you see who gets better, who gets worse, things like that. What do you think about the Melbourne Storm at the moment?
I mean, geez, they've been hit hard with injuries. Seems to be one team every year that just gets absolutely smashed with injuries more than everybody else, and this year it just looks like it's Melbourne.
Yeah, but still, they feel very, very un-Melbourne-like, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing for them is they copped so many injuries at the same time that Origin was on when they lost a whole heap of other players as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those combinations they had before Origin started are all completely changing every single week. And now that Origin's over and they've got their, whatever players they've got left that are fit, they're all different combinations that they've got to build all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're kind of starting the season from scratch. And when with a lot of different players, a lot of different roles, it's a very hard thing to do, especially when so many of their, players that they're trying to work with are in the spine, especially Pappenhausen being out with that horribly fractured kneecap. Have you seen the picture of that?
Oh, it was the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
His career is going to be changed by that.
So the NRL physio did a long thread today about what sort of surgery he's going to need, what they're going to do to fix his kneecap, and went on to go and find it on Twitter. It's very, very good reading, very, very thorough as well. And he compares it to the fractured kneecap that Tedesco had when he was at the Tigers. He had a knee clash, very similar impact with I think it was Terry Campese at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was knee on knee, and Tedesco split his kneecap right down the middle, but it was only one fracture.
Mm-hmm.
The one that Pappenhausen has got 10.
It's like a smashed plate.
Yeah, and I looked at it and I went, that thing doesn't need pins and stuff in it. It just needs a shit ton of tape. Just wrap it up with tape and stick it back on. She'll be all right, mate.
I looked at it and thought, fucking walk it off.
Yeah, how do you fix that? Seriously, god damn. You talk about putting pins in there to hold it all back together and hope that the bone will eventually all meld back together and be strong again. And the chances of re-injury, because it's it's a freak accident that causes it.
Yeah.
Which makes it a very rare thing to actually have happen ever again in your life, really. And the chance of coming back to full fitness is very high. Tedesco is a good example of it. So he will come back. He will get back to full fitness. The problem he's going to have, is that once he does retire, and maybe before he retires, if, and touch wood, he does have a long career, he's very strong chance of getting arthritis in his knee. And it could happen earlier than what most people would get because the ligament damage behind it is intense. So that's going to cause a lot of joint problems for him.
Yeah, the thing, it's only a small bone, but it's so much is attached to it, and so much of your knee mechanism is around your kneecap. It sounds silly, but it really is. That's why we have kneecaps. I really do. I hope he gets back from it and is the same player because he's a fantastic player when he plays, and it's the worst case scenario for him. And the thing is too, that's really strange is that Whiten kept running. Like they clashed knees.
Yeah.
One guy's season's over and his worst case scenario, knee being smashed, and the other guy keeps scrambling for more yardage and is fine. It's weird. It's kind of like head clashes. You can see two guys in a head clash and one guy sort of gets up and runs back in the line and the other guy has been switched off.
Yeah.
And it's just luck of the draw, or, the opposite
really
of that, whatever it is. Yeah. Just on that, Callan Ponga got a head knock. There's talk he will be out for the rest of the year with it. I would dare say that leading into this head knock, he'd had the head knocks, but it wasn't something that you'd be concerned about. Now it's a real concern because he's had a few of these now. They've been bad, and now the thought of keeping him out for the rest of the year, which is understandable because the Knights aren't going anywhere, but it's they just invested a lot of money in him, and I know that that's one of the back burner questions. You're just worried about his health first up, but man, he's got incentive to keep playing on. They've got incentive to get him back out in the football field. There's a lot going on in that.
See, I wonder if it's worthwhile thinking about moving him to 5/8. He doesn't have to do the kick returns. He doesn't have to do so much of the one-on-one tackling, especially of players who are running at full pace while he's standing still, because that's not going to help trying to avoid concussions for someone who's had a few already.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's time to just move him to 6, where he's still going to have a bit of time. He's not going to be first receiver. Whether that's an idea that they could think about looking at. He's done it before already. I wouldn't be surprised if that was where his long-term future was going to be as well. Maybe this could be the opportunity to give that a go. You can hide him behind some props as well in the middle of the field. That's not hard to do. Every team does it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And we've talked about he gets bashed up as a fullback. And when you look at a lot of modern day fullbacks, they're pretty big, solid dudes. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
He gets bashed back there. And I know we've talked about this before. I agree with you. I think he should be moved up to 5'8", because he's just not going to take that same punishment, funnily enough.
No, that's right. It's the long-term future for him, I think, is to move out there. And as I said, you can hide him anywhere. He's not a poor defender, not in the slightest.
No.
But when you're at fullback, most of the tackles you're going to make are one-on-one, and you will be going around someone's legs or up around their chest area to try and either stop them from offloading the ball or to try and stop them running. And those are the two areas where if you don't get that technically correct, you will get fucked up. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of people go in low around the hips. If they go in literally around the hips, more often than not, if the ball carrier turns a little bit or leads a little bit longer with their knee their leg that's off the ground, they can bump you off and hit you pretty hard around the head. And we see a lot of players going around that hip region and just bump out of it and get knocked out.
Yeah.
You've got to go a little bit lower so you're not collecting that really hard part of the body. That's hard to do when someone's coming at you at top speed and you're standing still. The other one is up around the ball. You can get fended off, pushed over backwards, and you have that whiplash effect when your head hits the ground. That's a bad one. It's a tricky situation, man. So moving him to 6, it's just a bit easy. He's going to be defending more in towards the middle of the field in the defensive line, and he's going to have a forward either side of him taking the initial impact, and he's just got to help wrap the ball up and get the play out of the ground, that sort of stuff. It would make sense for me, I think, to do that. You can prolong his career, get the maximum out of him as a ball player, and look after him at the same time. Yeah,
and they've invested in him for a long time now. Like those two, parties are wedded, and they need to consider what is going to make that marriage work for the rest of the term of his contract. And I just think that I watch a dude that he's very athletic, but he's getting worn down playing fullback, and I just can't imagine it's going to be any worse playing at 5'8". You would hope they don't have to move him out to the centres, because all of a sudden you're paying $1 million plus for a guy that can't play at fullback and has to play in the centres. That's just not on. So you hate to see great players like Ponga and Pappenhausen off the field, because they're so much fun to watch.
That's right, yeah. I've got a question for you about 2 players that are off contract at the Sharks.
Okay.
And which clubs you think should sign them, or whether they should be re-signed at all.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Fafita, Wade Graham.
It is so interesting you asked me this question, because I was watching them that entire Panthers game thinking about their futures. I think Andrew Fafita, it's hard, because at the very least he's a big dude, and he's always had a great motor on him. Like he's a weirdly got good cardio for a big dude. So yeah. If you go to Andrew Fafita and you say, look, Andrew, the days of you being a bit of a ball player and playing wider and stuff, they're over. We feel as though you can come off the bench and give us 20 minutes up the guts. If he's all in on that, I can see where you can sign him, not on a massive contract, but, he's still playing for the Sharks. I can see that. Wade Graham, I think it might be time for the Sharks to move on from him, because I think that when I watch him play, it's one of those weird things where it just feels as though things aren't going right for him. You know, I don't watch him and think that he's missing tackles and all this sort of stuff. I just see when he plays the game, maybe it's that weird thing of like he's trying so hard that, and maybe that's because he's missing a step athletically, so he's trying to make up for that in other ways, and so he's giving away penalties and, you know, things like that. And I wonder if it's time for the Sharks to move towards a different option for him. But I can see where Fafita needs to drop a little bit of weight. There's no doubt about that. If he's able to drop that weight, because he's dealt with so many injuries, terrible injuries too.
Yeah.
If Fafita feels as though he can get his weight down a little bit and he can take up a new role, I could see where you keep him. But Graham, I think I'd move on from. What do you think?
I'm still not sure on him. Fafita is definitely a bench rotation forward now. That's all he is now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that dismissively. He's a very, very handy bloke to have on the bench.
Mm.
Yeah, big runs, hard to tackle, and has such good hands for a forward, especially a prop. Just insane. But yeah, as you said, if you get him just going forward, and he does have a reasonably good play the ball on him for a big bloke too.
Yeah,
it's usually pretty quick because of the size of him. Teams can't roll him over too often, so he'll fall forward. So it means he's getting up, already facing the right way, just plays the ball straight away. So I still think someone will pick him up and he'll get a few more seasons out of him. Wade Graham, the only thing that worries me about him is just the head knocks that he's had. I think that's the only concern. I think he's still got the skill and all that sort of stuff and the desire and the drive, but the head knocks is just that. It's a bit of a concern. He had a few. Understandably, most of them were high impact ones. He hasn't had one that came about because it was a bit gentle, like boycotting had.
Yeah.
So they've all been high impact ones, but the problem is there's been a lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot. There's been too many of them. I'll put it that way. There's been too many of them, and so that immediately makes you just worry. You know, you're probably only one more away from them being very easy to get. And you don't want to have that risk for a bloke who's playing in the second row and plays as hard as he does.
Yeah, he throws himself in. That's the thing too. It's Boyd Cordner wasn't someone that was coming up to smash you every time. Graham is trying to smash you every time. And
he's out there sending a message to every forward, every playmaker, and every strike attacking weapon that's in the team that don't think that you're going to be able to have the space you want to do stuff because I'm going to be on your ass. And he only needs to hit them once or twice a game and they automatically get tentative and they look around for him. And he knows that. So he always tries to get out those one or two big hits per game just to keep them thinking and guessing and wondering where he is. And it's a good skill and a good ability to have that he's able to do that. He's got such good line speed, such good movement on the line as well. And yeah, I've got massive raps on him. I love him as a player, but I'd be very, very tentative about signing him for anything more than a season at a time, just because of the head knocks thing. That's the only reason why.
Yeah, I get that. And it's at some point, because the Sharks are trying to build something, at some point you've got to start looking towards the future and you know, you can't keep guys around forever. And it sucks, you know, it really sucks. But at some point, you've got to make those hard decisions. And it's really interesting because I was watching both those guys thinking, like, they're going to be decisions that have to be made. And you could go either way on them. And I wouldn't get stuck into the Sharks over it. And look, they re-signed Moylan last year on a short-term deal, and I was like, they are kidding themselves. Why are they doing that? Moylan's playing some pretty damn good footy.
Yes, I believe too, heard around the traps that he's taken some pretty sizable pay cuts as well to stay there. So he's not playing for the money. He's on quite a small contract these days.
I'll tell you what, whatever he's on, it's been worth it. He's been all right. You know?
This is the thing. I think he's one of those guys that when he's on the big money, he starts thinking, I've got to produce the big plays, and he overplays his hand an awful lot. But when he's on that smaller coin, I don't think he thinks that he has to be this playmaker, has to create everything all the time, and has worked so much better for his game. Maybe some players get pressured like that by the amount of money they got and think that I need to be performing to justify this pay packet.
Yeah, I reckon so. And I also think that for a player like him, he's felt like he had to do things, and it's meant that he's made a lot of mistakes and things like that. Whereas now Hines has come into the side, and Hines is doing things that are working as a young halfback. And I think that it allows Moylan to sort of take a step back from doing those things and just settle a play a lot. And, you know, that's all he needs to do. And that combination is working really, really well, which is, I would have never have thought it would have been a good combination of those two together. But, you know, they're getting the results. It's been really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it has been. They're playing a really unique brand of footy too. Like most teams are doing the same sort of things all the time. The Sharks are playing just something a bit off the cuff about them. It's a bit hit and miss sometimes, but when it's on, they're entertaining to watch.
I wouldn't be shocked if they were. They made the second last weekend of the season.
I like it. I put them down to be one of the last four teams left in the comp.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, obviously the Panthers are above everyone right now. I still wouldn't write off the Storm. I think the North Queensland Cowboys are going to be hard to beat, especially if they've got everyone on deck. And then after that, it's a little bit of a race between a lot of clubs.
South have kind of come into the conversation a bit now, I think.
Yeah, the thing about South's that I just think that their depth in the forwards concerns me. And,
true.
And the other thing is that, is Latrell going to be there because he hasn't been there for many different reasons when the whips are cracking?
I'll tell you what, actually, before you go on, watching Latrell on the weekend, I had him down as man of the match for that game, and he looked like he was doing it in second gear. Yeah,
he's a freak.
Yeah, I don't even think he's at full match fitness yet, and yet he's able to just. This game is my bitch.
Yeah.
Very much.
And the thing is, too, he's a giant. And I know I've said it on the podcast before, but it is shocking when you see him in real life, how big he actually is compared to the other players. And, yeah, he's one of those players that it's almost like you've put in a cheat code and put a player up to 99 on all of his stats for some players where he's the biggest and fastest and strongest on the field. And it really does remind you of Greg Inglis a lot. And on top of that, Latrell's the villain as well, which is really cool to watch. So he's one of the few players in the competition that could win a game on his own, hey?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's just brilliant to watch. He really is.
We've got a couple of emails. Should we go through them?
We should. Why not?
Okay, so the first email we've got is from Chris, and the subject is Origin Hatred. And he says, I'm 23 years old. My childhood was spent watching New South Wales getting pumped by Queensland for all those years while we had barely a glimmer of hope. I hate Queensland with all my soul. Truly. Right on, Chris. Kindred spirit there, Chris. As a fan, I would love to see these modern players, many who are my age, tell us about how bad it was during that time. It seems like Freddie has forgotten those years, and maybe that's why our team lacks hatred and desperation. Queensland players, meanwhile, still have PTSD over Origin rules before 1980. Freddie is just too nice of a bloke. That's his email.
Yeah, look, this whole Queensland gets Origin thing, and people arguing that, New South Wales gets it as much as well. I don't think people realise they've not properly looked at why this whole thing about Queensland getting Origin more than New South Wales is a thing. Okay. Before Origin came along, Queensland, you could put this to any sort of, thing that's been oppressed, people in a country, whatever, okay. Queensland had all of their best players taken from them because the best place to play football for a long time, up until the local Queensland competition actually got up to speed with the Sydney one, you had to go to Sydney if you wanted to get seen, if you wanted to get, better money to play the game, all sort of stuff, all those opportunities. You go to Sydney. And the system in place was you played for the state that you were currently playing in.
Yeah, it was a residency rule.
That's exactly right. And so New South Wales would be trotting out these teams that had Queensland players in them, and these players would then be out there bashing the living shit out of Queensland and flogging the arse off them. And Queensland was just constantly being flogged, not just by New South Wales, but their own men, their own Queenslanders. The rules were against them in that sense. They were the downtrodden, and they were constant underdogs. That's where that passion comes from. They hated the fact that they were being beaten by their own men. They hated the fact that they were being beaten by New South Wales. Whereas New South Wales, they didn't have that hatred. The passion wasn't there. You want a better example? Look at City versus Country. For so long, City just flogged Country all the time. And you'd hear, even up until they got rid of it a few years ago, what's the point of this? And that's how New South Wales approached the interstate games for a while there. Why do we bother with this? It's pointless. Mm-hmm. And so the game meant nothing to them. And that is why Queensland gets Origin, because it means something to them, because they were getting flogged and they hated it. And that emotion, that comes from that hatred of being beaten all the time by their own men, by the other state. New South Wales didn't have any emotion in it because it was a walk in the park for them. So they didn't get emotionally invested in it. They just went, oh, here's a trial match to play for Australia or something like that, and here's just something we do. And there was less emotion in it for them. And I believe that is a huge reason as to why Queensland has always had that passion in the interstate game, and New South Wales has lacked it. Now, I'm not saying that New South Wales still has that lack. I think to some degree they started to get a brief understanding of what it was like to be Queensland for, 70 years, in that period when Queensland won, 11 straight Origin series or whatever it was.
I think it was 8 in a row.
8 in a row, and they had, was it 11 of 12?
Yeah, something like
that. New South Wales players, fans, officials, all this stuff, they started to get an idea of what it was like to be Queensland, except Queensland had that happen from 1908 up until 1980. Basically, there was a small period in the 20s where Queensland were the better side. But that was pretty much it. That's where it comes from for me.
See, I have a different perspective on it. I think everything you've said is valid, by the way. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's valid. But I tend to think that Queensland's a more passionate team when they win the series. And then New South Wales has discovered the passion when they've won the series. And I tend to think it goes that way, and that the vast majority of State of Origin series are won by the more talented team. And it's not often that the less talented team wins a series. I think that New South Wales and Queensland in this series was really evenly matched. I said that going into the first game. So I think that this was a 50-50 series and Queensland won it. Someone's got to win it. But
that's right.
I just think that for the most part, it comes down to talent. And I think that when they went on their run, Queensland were just by far and away the more talented side. Like, that's what it comes down to. And before that, the teams were very even for talent for a very long time. New South Wales probably had more talent in the 90s, and I think that shows in their record in the 90s, and then that flipped over in a massive way for Queensland when they won all them series in a row. And I think it's much more even now. But, yeah, I tend to think that the passion argument, just gets used by whoever wins the series. If New South Wales had won this series, and they could have won it very easily, I'm sure they would have been all going around saying, yeah, we got something special here. We won a few series in a row now. It's the passion. We're all brothers. We're Blues brothers and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I tend to not pay attention to that stuff. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I look at it.
That's fair enough.
You know, if New South Wales in the next 10 years trotted out a team that was far, far superior to Queensland, it wouldn't matter how passionate Queensland was about State of Origin. They still wouldn't beat a far better New South Wales team most of the time. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. We also got another... Anyway, thank you, Chris, for your email. We love emails. We've got an email here from Nui Ash, who hasn't emailed us for a while, hey? He said, I was just thinking about Big Tino and the menace he has become for opposition packs, and something occurred to me. Samoa are a World Cup dark horse. Have a look at this Samoan 17 and let me know what you think. The only player from the 17 they may not get is Payne Haas if he chooses the mighty Kangaroos. And he says, Meninga, I'm going to need him. Meninga is going to need him. In which case, Jaden Sewer comes onto the bench and Junior Paulo starts. So he's got Crichton at fullback, May and To'o on the wings, Tago and Tabudai Fidao in the centres. He's got Luai at 5'8", Milford or Harris Tavita in the halves, Papali and Haas up front, Jastavunga at hooker, Kafusi and Nanai in the back row with Tino Fasamala Aui. It's the first time I've said his name properly on the podcast. Brilliant. And then he's got Shoestar, Junior Paulo, Tapau and Luluai on the bench. And then he said he's got an extended squad players. He's got Jaden Sewer in there, Spencer Linu, Shipley's in there, Herman Asa, Jackson Paulo. Like, they've got a lot of talent. David Norfoluma, Charlie Staines, Ronald Volkman. Like, they do have talent. I don't think talent's ever been their problem. It's been coaching and a really poor environment when they get together. And it's not the players. I'm not saying the players get together and create it. I just think the setup they have is not as good as other teams.
Does Payne Haas qualify as Samoan?
Well, we know he qualifies for the Philippines.
Yeah, his brother's played for the Philippines.
Yeah, I don't know 100% about Samoa. I think he does, but I don't know 100%.
That's interesting. Yeah, look, it's not a bad squad. The one thing that Samoa struggled with on the field has been a good spine and scoring points. That's been a big issue, but that squad should be able to do it. They are a dark horse.
Yeah, definitely.
No doubt about it.
Look, if they played to their potential, you'd put them right there with Tonga, but they just never played to their potential, unfortunately.
Well, they need Matty Johns coach them, don't they?
Yeah, him and his brother. Who put that forward? Oh, him and his brother.
Imagine my surprise.
I'm surprised Tim Sheens hasn't done a review of their coaching staff, eh?
Fuck, man, he might hear you.
Did you find it was weird that the Tigers on the weekend, the assistant who was given the job, wasn't there because of COVID in the week that Tim Sheen said he would take more control, and he wasn't there because of COVID as well. So the interim coach was replaced by an interim coach.
Yeah, it's a debacle.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you expect? If you want a debacle, where do you go?
Exactly.
Debacles are us. You go to Concord.
West Tigers territory, right in the heart of Concord.
Yeah. Yeah. No one knows where that is.
Andrew, if I was going to get the most up-to-date and complete rugby league statistical records on planet Earth, where would I go?
Well, I've done some research on this question, and I just stopped at rugbyleagueproject.org. I figured that was good enough.
That's interesting. Do you know anything about this website called rugbyleague.org? Rugbyleagueproject.org, sorry.
They're pretty thorough, and got some. I'd have to say, possibly the greatest team of owners and contributors there on earth, to be honest, in any form of research whatsoever. None better.
I heard there's a guy called Sean there that is an absolute taskmaster.
Mate, he's a genius.
Mm.
He takes wizardry
Mm-hmm.
and he makes that shit. He takes that unreal wizardry and makes it real.
And
I had to try and get that stupid NRL fucking slogan in there somehow.
Stuff to do with scripts, HTML.
Mate, he's all over it. I don't know what any of that means.
Neither do I.
He's got it sorted though. He knows all about it.
Login.
Yeah.
Submit form.
Right click. URLs. Mate, he's all over that stuff.
Tabs. Do follow.
Email. URLs. Web address.
Copyright. 2019.
Google. I think he does something with Google. I don't know.
Web.
Wikipedia.
Keyboard.
Post probably.
Spacebar.
The mouse. He's got click and double click going. He's got all that sorted.
Printer.
Yeah, bloke's a genius.
Yeah, he sounds really smart.
Too smart for me, mate. I just do research and press buttons on his website, and it's fantastic.
As Sean calls it, the dog work.
The dog work. Well, as I've always said, and I've always seen that I am his minion. I'm just his 2IC, but he's an absolute legend. That bloke.
Yeah,
we should all follow him on Twitter. He doesn't have very many Twitter followers.
I'll follow him on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter. What's his username on Twitter?
Azcatro. AZKATRO.
There you go.
Go follow him, people.
Yeah, he's a good follow. I started a website. Hey,
you started one?
Yeah, I started one.
Do tell.
I started it, and I think people will like it. I started it in 2004.
Hang on. Just checking my watch here.
Yeah.
That was a little while ago.
Yeah. It's been around for a while. I write about football on it. I put up funny lookalikes on it. I have some fantasy teams on it. I post the podcast episodes on it, and it's really good. And it's, if you put into like your address bar, you put in like www.leaguefreak.com, it comes up.
Nice. Did Sean set that up for you?
No. I kind of did most of it myself. Hey, and
you're like a sub genius. Sean's at the genius level. Yeah, the next level down from that.
That's a real hard backhanded comment. But like, yeah. Anyway,
yeah, it's not just a backhanded compliment. It's kind of a backhand holding a few house bricks.
Yeah.
It started out sounding like, oh yeah, that's not too bad. Just don't sit down and went, no, that just sounded like I called him shit.
That's like the backhand you get from Lyoto Machida when you're in the middle of the octagon. It's like, fuck, man. Just pump the brakes. I'm trying to pump myself up here. But yeah.
You get backhanded, your jaw gets broken, your face is completely destroyed. He looks down at you and says, sorry about that.
Yeah, exactly. You fucking end up unconscious. So it's a website I created and I made and I wrote on, and it's obviously today it has your wonderful piece on there. I'm always very happy. And it's funny, like I've been hosting pieces you've written for the website for many, many years now before we'd even talked. And imagine if we would have known all those years later that we would create this giant media organization of ours.
Conglomerate even.
Yeah.
We need to create a conglomerate.
Fluffy Hoodie Studios.
There we go. Job done. Someone needs to do all the. We've come up with all the ideas. Someone just needs to be a manager and just do all of the actual work, and we just sit there and just be the talent.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got the interns, but it's
basically shit.
They really are. They don't do enough for us, really.
No.
But, yeah.
Thankfully, that contract ends soon, doesn't it? We can just give them all back to the zoo.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, I guess technically we could terminate them any time we want, but then you got to drive somewhere and dig a fucking hole, and it's like, oh man, again.
It's a mess.
Yeah, I don't like doing it. It's like, you know.
Too much manual labour involved.
Well, you do it once, shame on you. You do it, 13 times, shame on me. I just am sick of it.
Right. Yeah. It's, manual labour. I do enough of that every week. I don't need to do it in my spare time.
Yeah. I've seen videos of manual labour. It looks fucked.
It's like sweating and stuff.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Prince Andrew can't sweat, by the way. But anyway. Oh, shit.
That's turned up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What else has been going on? Have we covered everything?
We've covered pretty much everything else. We'll do some more podcasts during the week. We've got our preview episode that we've got coming up. So we'll get that out, and then we'll cover some more subjects that I know people want to hear us talk about as well.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you check us out on the socials, on Instagram and Twitter at Fergo Freak Pod. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, MySpace. Like, subscribe, follow, do all of that, please. Share us around your socials. That would be brilliant. And we'll catch us all in probably 24 hours' time, I guess.
Palmerbet with the big don't argue. Punters will love that. Download our app today and enjoy tackle-busting benefits with great odds, more markets and same-game multi every NRL match at Palmerbet. Gamble responsibly. For Gamblers' Help, call 1-800-858-858.